Hello Backstitchers! Welcome to day 4 of the Sculpt Along. Today, or the Gus Sculpt Along. Today we're going to be working on Gus's base, which is going to be the blue pumpkin pincushion right here. Today we're just going to be building the base, getting the clay around the weight, and then tomorrow we'll finish it up by adding the color and adding Gus to the top. So let's go ahead and get started. For your base, what we're going to need is 2 kinds of bolts, or hex nuts. So the first size, that one will go on the bottom, then the bigger one will go in the middle, and then on top, just like that. So the bigger one is a 3/4-10, and I get these at Lowe's, and you can buy them by the box. If this size, let's see, the 3/4-10. If you buy the box, you get 20 in the box, and I think the whole box was $5 or $6. You can buy these individually if you just wanted to make these pattern weights and you're not quite sure if you want to keep doing them. They are sold separately. I think they're anywhere between 20 to 40 cents a piece, so they're not expensive at all. That's for the bigger size. For the 2 smaller sizes, we're using the 5/8-11 hex nuts, and it also shows you the lot number. And again, like I said, they can be bought separately, or you can buy them in the box. Buying them by the box, they shouldn't be any more than like about around $6, and anywhere from 20 to 40 cents a piece. They're not that expensive. So we're going to be building the base of our weight, and you look at the pumpkin, it's fatter in the middle, so that's why we have a bigger hex nut in the middle than we do so it gives that shape already. So the reason why we're going to use your brick of white clay. Now I've already used half of this to form the base of the Edna pattern weight. And the reason why I told you that you would need a bigger brick is because you'll use half of it to build this base. Now if you already work in clay, you can take your scraps and build your base with the scraps. That's what I do whenever I have scraps, like this little piece that we used, for the ear, the little piece that we cut off at the end of the ears, all that. I don't throw them away. I actually have like a little scrap bin, so that way when I am making pattern weights, or I need to build a base and it's not going to show, I just pull my scraps out instead of just using or just buying clay just to make that, when I've already got clay that's not being used, because you really can't use it for anything else. But for those of you who have never done this before or just starting, it's the reason why I had you get the 8-ounce block of white, is because you will need a lot of this to form your shape of the base for your pattern weight. So we're going to start by cutting some chunks of white. I'm going to go ahead and tilt the screen down. I'm also going to be working on my piece of parchment paper because it will make it easier to turn if I need. So I've cut off some chunks of, we're going to need more than this, but to start off with, we're going to take one of the two smaller hex nuts, set it down, and we're going to start filling the hole of the hex nut. You want to get in there and try to eliminate as much air as possible by squishing it down. So you want to fill like the threading in there, or the ridges. You want to fill that with clay. If it's easier, or if you have nails that won't let you get down in there, you can always take one of your ball tools and just use the ball to push it down. So once it spills out like that, that's totally okay, because we're gonna need, we need some that spills over anyways to help connect the bolts together. So now we're gonna take your big one and you're gonna set it in the middle, but you want to try to keep on your hex nuts. You're gonna see where you have the flat sides, and then you have your angles or your corners. You're going to try to make where your flat sides are lined up and your corners are lined up. And you know it's got a good grip when they just stick together just because of the clay. So we're going to start filling the middle of the big one. And doing this, building your base, you don't have to worry about if you get color transfer or like dust specks or fibers in there, because it's all going to be covered with your colored clay anyways. So in the end of the video, the way I explain this is the base that you're building now is like the clay that you're using now, and the bolts or the hex nuts, the hardware and stuff that you're using is like the inside of a cake. It's what gives it your form and the mass part of your pattern weight. Now, the color clay that we'll be covering everything with is your frosting. And that is the part where you make it look fancy or make it look pretty. And that's the part, those are the parts that you have to be concerned with, like color clay transfers or dust specks or fingerprints, stuff like that. So, but right now it really doesn't matter. Where did I put my... Oh, duh. Okay. So I said we did, when doing the smaller, I said we needed some like over spillage or whatever, so that way that the the next hex nut has something to grip onto. And also in the last video, I explained to you why I used wood in the middle, because metal really doesn't, like, it has, so we are using metal, but as you'll see as we go along, all this metal is going to be covered with a layer of thick white clay, so it really doesn't have anywhere to move to because it's going to be encased in clay. So you add your last hex nut and push it down, and you got a good seal. Now if it fell apart, you would need to make sure that you're getting a good that they're connected better. So we're going to go ahead and fill in this again, or fill the last piece in. Okay. All right, so our centers are connected, right? You can feel it. It's a pretty good weight, or it's pretty heavy. So, all right, now to start building your form. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut off some more of your white clay. And again, if you have scraps, go ahead and use the scraps. I'm just rolling this because I need to soften it up a little bit, and the heat from your hands will soften it up. Okay, so now I'm going to roll it out. We're just doing this to be able to cover this right now, but we're going to add more clay to get the shape that we want. Roll it out a little bit more. All right. So we're gonna you're gonna wrap your clay around the hex bolts. You want to try to smash it in there because you want to try to avoid air pockets. So right now we're gonna make a tight fit. We're gonna mold it around. Obviously it's not all covered, so I'm gonna cut some more clay off. So we're just, right here is pretty, So like I said, right now we're covering your hex nuts, so that way all of the metal, we want to get all of the metal in here encased in clay. So, take another slice off. Right. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to start building our shape. So all right, so the middle of your pumpkin is going to be thicker, right? So basically what we're trying to build is pretty much a ball. So what I do is I start off with the middle, soften your clay up, and you're going to roll out a log. Make sure that it goes around, it's going to be able to go around the base or around the middle of your pumpkin. So that's going to be too thin for the middle. So I want to take and cut a bigger slice off. Roll it out again into, oops, a log. Now, as you can see, if you look at the two I've just rolled, right? This one is skinnier than this one. So we're going to use the thicker one for the middle. If you rolled it too long, just wrap it and then cut it. Take your blade and just cut off the excess. And secure it just like that. Now we're going to take the thinner one that you just did, See how it's starting to taper? All right, so now we're going to make another one. Cut some more off. Pull it out again. Okay, now this one, we're just going to keep coiling until it runs out. All right, so see how it's starting to take shape? Okay. Making coils and covering, like if you watch the Edna video, winding the thread, the red thread around, takes forever, but it's the best way to get, now if you were working with, if you just made, you could just take a brick of this and roll it into a ball and go from there, but there is no weight to that. Like even an 8-ounce brick, there's no weight to it. Like this 8-ounce brick, this weighs at least twice. It has twice the weight than an 8-ounce brick does. So I mean, you could get it in a perfect ball just by working with the clay, but because we have to have that weight in there to make it like a pattern weight, we have to figure out a way to make the pumpkin round. And this is, if you know a better way and you'd like to share it, that's totally up to you. But as far as I go, this is like the best way that I can figure out how to do it, is to make coils that gradually get smaller and smaller as you go from middle to top and then middle to bottom. So oops. You just keep coiling and coiling. When you get to the top, you can go ahead and just keep going until your clay runs out. So this is what we're working with. So it's kind of round right now. Kind of looks like maybe a beehive. So what we're gonna do is now we're just going to work on getting these grooves out and getting the shape that we want. So the way that I do it is I go ahead and I start rolling. And you're just gonna do this by eye. You're gonna start by, like, if you get a ball in your hands, you naturally want to roll like this, right? So we're gonna do that, and gradually come up with a shape that we want for our pincushion. So I know that the bottom needs to be thinner because right now it looks more like an oval. So I know that the bottom needs to be thinner and the top needs to be thinner. So we're gonna take our coils of clay and we're gonna start. You don't want to push too much because you don't want your metal to pop out. But this is how we're starting to form what the shape of the pumpkin is going to look like. So once you pretty much get the shape of how you want it, which pretty happy with that shape, you can take one of your ball tools and just start working those seams by not pushing hard, but maybe like a soft medium pressure, and start like smoothing those grooves out. And like I said, you don't have to worry about this being like you don't have to worry about this being completely like dust free, or there's a speck of, I don't know, if you had brown or yellow left over on your board that you didn't completely get up. This part is not going to be seen, so you can also use your fingers. And this is, I think, with the base, this is the most time consuming part, is just getting all those grooves and everything smoothed out and building and shaping, because you want to make sure that your foundation is the shape that you want. You're also checking while you're doing this, you want to check for air bubbles. You want to try to avoid air bubbles because when it cooks, well, first it could like weaken the integrity of or it can weaken, like, you'll have a weak point in your base. It also could, the air bubble could raise to the top, or it could expand, and it could like pop open while it's cooking. If it does that, I mean, you can fix it with liquid clay or your bacon bond, but it's a pain in the butt to try to fix something like that because you have to get that bacon bond and then you have to mix your color clay with it to get it the color, and make sure your color's not off, and then you fill it in, then you have to go back and sand, kind of like what you would do with wood filler. Kind of same concept. Let's see, we're slowly getting there. So I do have Golden Girls on in the background. Still, I had it on when I was working on Edna, the Edna pattern weight. I pretty much, anytime that I'm working on clay, or if I'm sewing, working on fabric designs or panels, you can pretty much bet that Golden Girls are going to be on. Because, I mean, I've watched it so many times that when I do watch it, I don't feel like I'm missing out on, like, an episode that I haven't seen, because I know I've seen them all. So we're almost done with blending in your coils. Okay, so we've got all of our coils are blended together. Oops, got this one on the spot. So now we just want to go ahead and, like I said, if you do this, you want to be gentle. You don't want any of your metal of your hex nuts coming out. So now what we're going to do is, if you have a pin cushion, one of those tomato or pumpkin pin cushions, which I don't know where mine's at. So, but if you bring one up on Google, pin cushion. All right. So images. So if you look at this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it's sectioned off in 6, right? And your little top, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it has 8. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to divide it into 6 by basically kind of like you're cutting a pie. So you have, if you take and mark a middle point on both sides, you can take and make a guideline starting from the top going down to the bottom. And just like you're making a slice of pie, you're going to do that until you have 6. I wouldn't say they'd have to be equal, but I mean similar size parts. or if you wanted to do 8 or however many you wanted to do. So 2, 3, 'kay. So you basically have divided into 6, and you got your guidelines going all the way around, right? So now what you want to do is you can do this with your blade with your blunt end, not your razor end. Those guidelines you can stick in, not all the way down. You don't want to cut down to the middle, but just to where you're making those separating those sections where you're pushing down. So that way you're making the pumpkin, you know how pumpkins, when they have like the indentations, right? So that's what we're making right now. And you're going to do that. So I did it on one side and then I flipped it. And did it on both sides. See, you look, you can see that valley or that groove right there. So we're going to do that all the way around to each of those and make those okay. So you keep doing that until you're happy with the shape of your pincushion slash pumpkin. Oops. Good thing about working with clay, if you drop it, it's not glass, it's not going to break, at least before it's been popped in the oven. Like I said, this can be it can be time consuming, but I mean, I don't know, to me it's kind kind of awesome because you're making a, you know, one of a kind piece that like you put your creative mind into. I mean, to me, I would rather have a set that's like friend or my daughters, or you know, that they've made it. I mean, it's more sentimental, it's more personal. Or even a set that you made yourself. I mean, you make it exactly the way you want. It may not be perfect to someone else, but it's perfect to you. You put your time and your energy and your mind and creativity into something, and makes it special. Okay, so we've got it. We've got this done. So we have our base made. Now, tomorrow we're going to be adding the final details. Tomorrow we're going to be adding the final details, the coloring, and then adding Gus to the top of your pattern weight. And that will complete the sculpt along. And again, I said this in the Edna video, but if you're not doing Edna, or if you haven't seen those yet, I had planned on getting these done sooner, but time got away from me. We had a family business that we had to take care of. And then when we got done with that, our whole family got sick with some crud that was going around. And then my girls got better, went to school for a couple days, came home, and gave everybody flu A. So we were sick and knocked on our butts for about 2 weeks. And then with 2 weeks being sick, you get behind on things. So for 2 weeks, we've been scrambling to get things caught up around the house, and then things caught up with business. And now that Thanksgiving is just like the day after tomorrow, we are getting ready for Thanksgiving. But I did have, you know, a little time in between all this craziness to sit down, and I wanted to get these done because I know that you guys have been really patient in waiting for this to come along. So I wanted to sit down and get it done for you. And I hope that so far that I've been able to teach you something and help you get your creative juices flowing, and that you're just able to sit down and relax and just play with some clay. So we will see you, or I will see you tomorrow on day 5 when we finish up our Gus pattern weight. Thank you, and I'll see you tomorrow.